Many people associate leather culture with BDSM practices and its many subcultures, but for others, wearing black leather clothing is an erotic fashion that expresses heightened masculinity or the appropriation of sexual power, love of motorcycles and independence, and or engagement in sexual kink or leather fetishism. Starting in the 1940s with the Hollister Riot, where a motorcycle rally turned rowdy, leather culture has been rooted in a biker gang image, attracting gay men and promoting an image of hyper-masculinity. Leather appealed to men who were ready to present themselves differently, leaving behind the pre-Second World War gay culture that often emphasized formal or even extravagant attire, and that was largely segregated by social and economic classes. As outlaws, like Marlon Brando and James Dean, became Hollywood's sex symbols in films like A Streetcar Named Desire and Rebel Without a Cause, gay men adopted that rebellious aesthetic as a way of aligning themselves with the counterculture and as a way of emulating masculine ideals they found attractive. The first leather clubs to exist opened in Seattle in the 1970s. There, individuals could find a community that met their needs and allowed them to cruise, experiment, and participate in leather contests. These contests were a way to display masculinity and a love for the outdoors. We can't talk about the history of leather culture within the queer community without spending some time talking about the International Mr. Leather and the International Ms. Leather competitions. International Mr. Leather began in 1979, growing out of what had been a physique competition in the Chicago gay bar scene. From the start, International Mr. Leather, or IML, focused on presenting homomasculinity, an idea that the contestants were presenting masculinity with an emphasis on sexuality, same-sex sexuality to be specific. Leather jackets and boots, revealing swimsuits or jockstraps, and hairy chests were the norm for contestants. That first year, there were 12 contestants, representing 6 U.S. states. 10 years later, the event had grown to include 42 contestants, representing 20 states and 2 countries. In 1989, IML was the introductory event for the leather pride flag, attracting even more attention than the winner of the competition. That flag has become a staple of LGBTQIAQ pride festivals in the years since. Similarly, International Ms. Leather, or IMSL, started in 1987, following several years of smaller competitions in the San Francisco area. IMSL started with 16 contestants and continues to grow. International Ms. Leather offers a slightly different format, with contestants having to plan and perform in a fantasy sequence for the audience, in addition to scoring points from judges for their gear, their interview, and their speech, as the International Mr. Leather contestants do. Within the queer community in the 1980s, AIDS took its toll, and for the queer subculture of leather, it was no different. An inadequate, heteronormative, cis-focused sex education based on preventing pregnancies led to low levels of condom use and a lack of understanding about various sexual health risks. In fact, the first AIDS-related death in San Francisco was the founder of the city's first leather bar, causing many clubs to close. Prior to AIDS, many members of the leather community identified within very strict roles and hierarchies. A dom, or dominant, was always a dom. A submissive, or sub, was always a sub, and so on. Adhering to these practices, these roles, these hierarchies, represented the old guard point of view of leather. Leather communities also tended to be segregated based on sex binary, and were often not inclusive of gender non-binary or gender fluid people. Due to this exclusionary mindset, tensions rose within the leather community. Those in favor of discipline and strict roles remained aligned with the old guard, Those that branched away in favor of sexual and gender liberation, as well as less rigidity in roles, became known as the New Guard. In 2010, the idea of homomasculinity was expanded at IML when Tyler McCormick, a self-described leather gimp who is also female to male transgender, was named International Mr. Leather. By 2019, IML had expanded to feature 68 contestants from 26 states and 15 countries. On a local note, in 1995, Iowa was represented for the first time at International Mr. Leather with 2 contestants competing. We've had representation every year since then, with several Mr. Iowa Leather contestants placing in the top 10. We've also had contestants at International Ms. Leather since 2014.
My whole life, I've been told that I am not enough. I'm not black enough, not queer enough, not smart enough, not strong enough. Hell, there are people in this room right now who don't think I'm enough of a man to be allowed on this stage. Most of us feel like we aren't enough for something or someone at some point in our lives. But when I was being trained as a sex educator, I learned to ask one of the most important questions that I will ever ask. For who? I'm not leather enough? For who? I'm not submissive enough? For who? I'm going to tell you something that it took me nearly 30 years to learn. If you're enough for you, then you are enough. Period.
How has leather influenced mainstream and queer culture? Just as leather culture was originally influenced by mainstream culture, leather culture has a long-standing influence on mainstream culture, art, and artists. Musical artists like Joan Jett, Judas Priest, and their out lead singer Rob Halford, and the Village People all promote leather culture through their unapologetic fashion choices both on and off the stage. We see the emergence of goth and metal styles coming out of leather culture as well. Even mainstream high-end fashion, including haute couture runway shows, have taken inspiration from and celebrate leather culture. Robert Mapplethorpe is a celebrated artist and is well known for his photographs of the leather and kink communities from the 1960s and 1970s. Who are some notable figures within the leather community? Cynthia Slater, who managed the first fisting club and opened it to lesbians. She also taught sex and BDSM education and promoted mutual aid during the AIDS epidemic. Pat Calafia is viewed as a key contributor to the emergence of lesbian leather culture. Pat was also a long-standing contributor to mainstream gay publications such as The Advocate. Other famous figures who subscribe to leather culture include Freddie Mercury, whose very image became iconic in terms of gay culture and leather culture, and George Michael. What are barriers that the leather community faces today? The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, or DSM, still stigmatizes kink sexuality. Queer communities are still victimized by discrimination, police brutality, and violence. Leather folk remain a minority within a minority and are not always accepted by the larger LGBTQIAQ communities.